to grant us from His mercies and make us witness several other editions of our Sunday webinar series. We thank Allah that He answered our prayer and He has made us in His benevolence to witness another edition of the weekly webinar series of Nasrullah Al-Fatih Society. Inshallah, as we have known, this is now a tradition of Nasrullah Al-Fatih Society that every Sunday at exactly 5 o'clock p.m. we engage ourselves in some high level of educational discourse. We engage ourselves in intellectual activity from 5 o'clock p.m. every Sunday. It is now one of our traditions in Nasrullah Al-Fatih. It's on this note that I welcome each and every one of us to today's edition of the weekly webinar, which we have all known that it's going to be not only educative, it's going to be intellectual, and of course, it's going to be interesting. So it is a pleasure to welcome each and every one of us to today's edition of the program. Abdul Ghaffar Adeleye. We shall be starting today's program with an opening prayer. And immediately after the opening prayer, we'll be having the opening remarks from our chief missioner, after which the citation of our lecturer will be read, and we'll listen to his lecture. We'll entertain questions and answers afterwards, while our chief missioner be giving us his closing remarks, and then we call it close for the day, inshallah. We pray to Almighty Allah to be with us as we begin, and to be with us throughout the program, and make us better Muslims at the end of the day, inshallah. Islam. Today's edition promises to get our resource person with us, and by the time it is time to speak, we shall be hearing from him.
It's with us.
And we shall be getting it's with us. We shall be getting insights into the topic that we have chosen for today's discussion. As we have known, our topics are always centered towards ensuring that we get educated, we get better informed, especially as regards our deen, al-Islam. May Almighty Allah grant us from His mercies. Let me invite one of our imams for this. He's going to do two things. It will give us a short opening dua and a brief opening. Brief welcome remarks on behalf of Imam Olagunju.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. As-salatu was-salam ala ashrafil mursalin. Alhamdulillah, we thank Almighty Allah. We appreciate Him for giving us another opportunity to meet for our another edition of our weekly webinar. As we're commencing the webinar, we ask Almighty Allah to come along with us to put barakah in today's program for us. We ask Him to support our lecturer, Professor Ismail Musa from the University of Lagos. We ask Almighty Allah to strengthen him, to support him, and to accept this from him as a lot of ibadah. We also pray for him, we are able to ask Almighty Allah to give every one of us the understanding to the the knowledge to understand what will be given to us. بقدرة إهدنا الصراط المستقيم إهدنا الصراط المستقيم إهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. Permit me to give the opening remark to the National Dawah Officer of the Society,
Amin.
Brother Imam Abdul Ghani Raji. So let him do the opening remark.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على حبيب الله ورسوله سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the opportunity He has given us to be here again. As it is customary of us every Sunday, we do gather here virtually to listen to a research-based and scholarly presentation. And today we've indeed caught a very big fish, my lecturer and my mentor, and also the chief imam of the University of Lagos, Professor Ismail Musa, is the one who has been invited to come and share his experience and knowledge with us this evening on the topic, the concept of adoption in Islam. Without mincing words, this topic is a topical one because it is one that has generated a kind of misunderstanding among Muslims, because a lot of Muslims are oblivious of the position of Islam on adoption. So our teacher and mentor is here today to demystify this concept for us. And I can tell the audience that our teacher is going to do more than enough justice to the topic. We should sit back to enjoy his presentation, and we should get our questions ready for him. So thank you very much, everyone, for being part of this event. May Allah accept it from us as an act of ibadah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you very much, National Dawah Officer, Imam Abdul Ghani Raji. May Almighty Allah is our task. And I also be appreciating Imam Salahuddin Isbauddin Olagunju, who did the opening dua at the beginning of the program. Inshallah, without
this meeting is being recorded.
We shall be moving to the citation of our guest speaker, inshallah. As we have heard from the National Dawah Officer, the topic that we shall be treating this evening is the concept of adoption in Islam. The concept of Islam, and as I said, that of Lagos here in Nigeria. He obtained a postgraduate diploma in teaching in higher education in year 2007 from the University of Ibadan. He was a pioneer acting head of the Department of Religious Studies, University of Lagos, editor of Religion and Contemporary Issues. He is the chief imam, the current chief imam of the University of Lagos Muslim Community, Professor Musa is the coordinator diploma in mosque leadership and management program. He has over 40 publications, including 4 books and articles in learned journals to his credit. He has authored many books and supervised a number of PhD and master's theses. He has also served as external examiner for various tertiary institutions. He was chief examiner Islamic studies for the National Examination Council, NECO, and Joint Universities Preliminary Examinations Board, JUPEB. He is a member of the National Association of the Teachers of Arabic and Islamic Studies, and also a member of the National Association of the Study of Religion, among others. Inshallah, brothers and sisters, this evening, join me in welcoming our erudite scholar, Professor Ismail Musa. Ahlan wa sahlan marhaban. The topic is the concept of adoption in Islam.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهديه الله فهو المهتدي ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل ضلالة في النار. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. Prof, sir, we would like to see you. We'd like to see you put on your video so that we'll see your face, sir.
Okay, that will be done in a moment.
Thank you, sir.
I also want to request you to allow me to share my slides. I believe you can see me now.
Yes. Prof, you can go ahead.
Well,
you have post, right? You can go ahead.
Okay. It will be shared in a moment. The topic is the concept of adoption in Islam. And before I go into the main presentation, I would like to make some brief opening remarks. First of all, I will want to say that there is a strong relationship between the issue of adoption and the controversy in Islam. We know that Islam emphasizes mercy using different mechanisms. One of the mechanisms that Allah has used so that we do not forget that Islam is about mercy is the fact that Allah himself is Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. I believe you can see my screen. Are you able to see my screen? Is anybody
your screen is okay. We can see it clearly, both screens.
Okay. Thank you very much. I was trying to say that Allah emphasizes the issue of mercy in different ways. First, his name is Rahman. Is also Rahim. These two names comes from Rahma, mercy. It's a means of reminding us that he is not only merciful, but he encourages mercy. And so we should be merciful to each other. Secondly, he uses the same name or word to describe the prophet in Quran chapter 9, verse 128. That popular verse that we all read, لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُمْ حَرِيصٌ عَلَيْكُمْ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَءُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. That the prophet himself is gracious and merciful in his conduct, in his relationship with human beings. And then thirdly, Allah also informed us categorically that the import of the prophet's mission is mercy, is to spread mercy, is to ensure that everybody benefits from mercy. Mercy from Allah, mercy from the creatures of Allah. He says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. That we have sent you as a mercy to the whole world. And fourthly, the womb of our mothers is called Ruh. And we know that that word also comes from mercy. That the womb is a place of mercy. It's a place that babies benefit, from. It's a good environment that ensures not only the growth of the embryo, but also ensure that the embryo is well protected. So it's a place of mercy for all of us. And then that instruction, Irhamu ahlal ard, yarhamukum ahlal sama. You should be merciful to the inhabitants of the earth, so that in return, those in the heavens will be merciful to you. So we discover that Islam is about mercy, and it emphasizes mercy. And when we talk about the concept of adoption, we are primarily talking about how to be merciful to one another, and how to be merciful to the vulnerable groups within the society. We cannot afford to abandon them. We cannot afford to adopt an I don't care attitude towards them. Their problem is our problem, and we should not just be watching them, frustrated. We should ensure that we take concerted measures to ensure that their well-being is well taken care of. It is on that note that I would like to commend the organizers of this forum, the NASFAT, the officials, the entire membership of NASFAT, for keeping the flag flying, for ensuring that we continue to be educated, for ensuring that these issues that may be confusing to some of us, we have an opportunity to clarify those issues, to gain more understanding about those issues, and to ensure that we take appropriate action when necessary. So I pray that Allah will continue to strengthen NASFAT. Allah will continue to strengthen the members and officials of NASFAT and reward you all in the best way. Jazakumullah khairan. On that note, I would like to say that the presentation is structured into 7 parts. There is an overview, and then we shall be defining adoption. Thirdly, we will like to discuss briefly why people adopt. What is their primary motive for adoption? And then thirdly, what are the typologies of adoption? We would like to discuss them. And then the main discourse, which is on the Islamic jurisprudence of adoption. We want to know the teachings of Islam regarding adoption, so that we do not make mistakes. Now, are there challenges related to adoption? and the strategies to overcome those challenges. And the last will be recommendations and conclusion. So on this note, let me proceed quickly to the first aspect of the presentation, which is the overview. Now, adoption is an issue that has attracted the interest of scholars in various fields, sociologists, experts in social work, psychologists, experts in medicine, experts in early childhood education, experts in religious studies, have discussed this issue. They have conducted researches on the issue of adoption. Secondly, we also have to note that the practice of adoption is an age-long practice. Many ancient societies practice adoption in one form or the other. And even contemporary societies in our world of today, the issue of adoption is everywhere. Government is involved, international agencies are involved, individuals are involved, groups are involved. And so adoption is not really new to us. But whether we are going about it in the right way or the wrong way is another issue. Now, for instance, the practice of adoption is well documented in ancient Rome, in pre-Islamic Arabia, and in various African societies. And we know that as a result of these practices, rightly or wrongly, adopted children have become famous personalities. They've contributed immensely towards the development of human societies. Whether those people were properly adopted or not is another question. But let me cite a few examples of adopted people who have made a mark on the sands of time. In the Roman Empire, the first Roman emperor, Augustus Caesar, was adopted by Julius Caesar. No, maybe if he was not adopted, something would have happened to him. But he became the king or the monarch of the ancient Roman Empire. And in Islam, the case of Zayd ibn al-Harith, who was adopted by the Prophet ﷺ, is regularly quoted. Malcolm X, that popular human rights activist, was adopted. The one-time lady, the first lady of America, Eleanor Roosevelt, was also adopted. Same thing is of the former president Reagan, Michael Reagan, was also adopted. Even the first lady herself, Nancy Reagan, was an adopted daughter. Bill Clinton, who was president of America not quite long ago, was formerly known as William Jefferson Blythe III. He was adopted by Roger Clinton. In Africa, our Nelson Mandela was said to have been adopted by a tribal chief. And in Nigeria, that popular actress, Joke Silva, was adopted by Chief E.A. Silva. And Dr. Abimbola Silva, the first female medical doctor in Nigeria. So all these people were adopted people, and we have seen that the outcome of that adoption is success. So that means that adoption is something that should be encouraged. Those children who are languishing, here and there in the society, frustrated, wandering around with nobody to take care of them. Maybe if we take care of them, they will be able to contribute meaningfully to the development of society. Now, we know that adoption has been studied in history severally. However, we have to acknowledge that apart from solving the problem of infertility, we know that adoption has assisted in raising a number of issues, especially in modern times. We are not just talking about history today. When any issue related to adoption is raised, we discover that there is a lot to talk about. For instance, should adoption be used to form new families, even by single parents, by people who are homosexuals? They use adoption to form their families. Is it appropriate? People are talking about it. The laws on adoption is also changing. It's attracting attention. Does it require modification? Do we need to strengthen those laws? People are talking about it. The mental health of adopted persons have been talked about. When a child is adopted, what happens to him or her mentally? People are talking about it. And then we discover that the issue of adoption is becoming globalized. It's not only a domestic issue, as we shall soon discover that we have international or cross-border adoption. It is possible for somebody in Nigeria to adopt a child from another country. So people are talking about it. How easy is it? And then it's not only children that are being adopted today. People are also talking about the adoption of adults, the adoption of people with special needs. And then should adoption be confidential or be made open? People are talking, they are talking about it. How do people who have lost touch with their biological parents, how will they be able to reunite with their parents? People are talking about it. And what this means is that the issue of adoption is dynamic. People have a lot to say to improve the system, to ensure that the interest of everybody is well taken care of. That is why people are talking about the issue of adoption. However, we have to recognize that we are not yet there. There are certain disturbing facts which we need to address. For instance, according to the UN, presently, or as at 2019, the world had a record of 20.4 million refugees, as at 2019. And that the COVID-19, which is almost gone here, but is still a contentious issue elsewhere, is capable of increasing global poverty by 500 million people. It's a disturbing fact. The fact that millions of people, most of them are children, die from diseases associated with inadequate water supply, sanitation, and hygiene. It's a disturbing fact. It's a disturbing fact. Are we helpless? What can we do to address all these problems? The fact that millions of children are denied a fair chance because of their background, because of their country, because of their gender, because of circumstances into which they are born. This are global problems. These are global issues. What can we do about them? In what way can adoption come into assist? 258 million children, adolescents, and youths are out of school. And Nigeria has the highest out of school population with 8.5 children. Around 85 million families in Nigeria own a pet. 85 million. They adopt pets as members of their families. The statistics show that around 90% of Americans who own pets claim that their pet is a part of their family. So if people find it easy to adopt animals as members of their families, what about human beings? Now, our approach in this discourse is to use the opportunity provided by this issue of adoption to see how we can tackle some of these problems, especially those ones that are related to vulnerable children around the world. How can we use the issue of adoption to find solutions to them? In Islam, we have adoption called tabani. We have guardianship called kafala, and we have fosterage called radha. These three concepts, how do we use them to ensure that we are able to tackle some of the problems in the society? Now, what is adoption? There are several definitions of adoption, and there appears not to be a universally accepted definition of adoption. Most dictionary definitions of adoption focus on the legal dimension of adoption to neglect cultural and religious characteristics of adoption, and must not be carried away when we look at definition in the dictionary, and that definition is being over legalistic. Now, there are other definitions of adoptions that are not too formal, that are not too legal in their submission. Now, let us consider 2 or 3 definitions of adoption. The Oxford Dictionary defines adoption as the action of fact of legally taking another's child and bringing it up as one's own, or the fact of being adopted. We need to observe here that this definition is talking only about legal adoption and an adoption that is considered legal. Now, when we consider another definition, we discover that there are certain adoptions that are informal. You don't need to go through legal processes to adopt a child. For instance, your dictionary.com defines adoption as the voluntary acceptance of a child of other parents to be the same as one's own child. This definition is less formal. It embraces various peculiarities, cultural peculiarities, religious peculiarities. So it's more acceptable as the definition of adoption than other definitions. In Japan, a concept is called mukoyoshi. Mukoyoshi is a situation whereby a father-in-law adopts his son-in-law to assume major ownership responsibilities in his wife's family's business. So this is a cultural type of adoption. Now, The Welfare Information Gateway submits that adoption is the social, emotional, and legal process in which children who will not be raised by their birth parents become full and permanent legal members of another family while maintaining genetic and psychological connections to their birth family. What is interesting in this definition is that as far as other definitions are concerned, they are talking about an adoption that excludes the biological family. So that once somebody is adopted in most of the Western world, that child has no connection with the biological parents. But this definition is saying that, well, you can adopt, but you continue to maintain genetic and psychological connections to the birth family. And this is part of the Islamic modification to the concept of adoption. Now, we now move to the reasons why people adopt. The reasons are many. And our interest here is that when people adopt children, do they adopt those children in the interest of those children or in their own interests? They feel that they have some problems and they use those children to solve the problem. So the focus is not on the welfare of those children. The focus is on their own welfare. So people think that those who have adopt children adopt them because they have the problem of childlessness. Even that one, by research findings, it's not true. People adopt children for different reasons. For instance, delayed marriage. There are new forms of marriages, like marriage among homosexuals. We don't have homosexuality as they have it. It's not as rampant here as they have it elsewhere. But it is fact. It's a fact of social life, in the developed countries. Some people postpone childbearing, and in the process they have to adopt. And people adopt as a result of a divorce. There is a list of 22 reasons why people adopt children. I was thinking I'll be able to share that table with you, but if I'm not able to share it, no problem. The analysis of that table, that out of these 22 reasons why people adopt, 59% of those reasons favor adoptive parents. 18% of those reasons favor adopted children, while 23% of the reasons favor both adoptive parents and adopted children. You discover that 18%, it's only 18% of those reasons that favor adopted children. It means that adoption does not automatically translate to better well-being or welfare for the adopted child if that adoption is not properly managed. What it means is that most of the adoptive parents that we have today use adoption to solve their own problems rather than focusing on the problems of those children who do not have parents, or who have parents, but those parents are incapable of taking good care of them. Their focus is not on those the welfare of those children, and that is un-Islamic. That is not the case with Islamic type of adoption. the Islamic form of adoption, the focus is on the child, is on the welfare of that child, is to help the child out of his problem, not helping the adoptive parents. The adoptive parents can be helped in the process, but the primary focus is on the adopted child. Now, let us now consider the types of adoption that we have today. There are so many of them. But these forms of adoption can be broadly categorized into the Sharia compliant and non-Sharia compliant adoption. As Muslims, we must follow the dictates of the Sharia. And when we look at these adoptions, these types of adoptions today, we discover that very few of them are Sharia compliant. Now, from a secular perspective, adoptions may be full or simple. It may be open or closed. It may be national or international. It may be formal or informal. Now, maybe the next slide we provide additional information on this type of adoption. What do we mean by full adoption? Full adoption is when a new parent fully replaces the old parent. There was an old parent, and through the process of adoption, that old parent is replaced effectively, permanently, and forever. This type of adoption is the one that is called full adoption. The one that is the opposite of full adoption is simple adoption. And simple adoption is when a new parent is added to the old parent. You will discover that Islam encourages this type of parenting. A situation whereby the child is adopted, but that's the biological parents are not eliminated. They are not ostracized. They are not neglected completely. They still play a role in nurturing the child, in providing emotional and psychological support to that child. Then we have open adoption. Open adoption can also be considered as being Islamic because the birth parents and the adult parents know each other. They know who has adopted their children. They know where the child is. They have access to the child. That is an open type of adoption. The opposite is closed adoption. Closed adoption is an adoption where the birth parents do not have access to the adoptive parents. In fact, every effort is made to conceal information if they are alive. Every effort is made to make the documents of adoption confidential. That is a closed type of adoption. Then there is what is called embryo adoption. Embryo adoption allows the adoptive mother to carry her genetically unrelated child to experience pregnancy and delivery. It means that somebody can become an adopted parent through intro fertilization. The materials used do not belong to her. So biologically, she is not related to that child. It is the fertilized egg that is, inserted into her own uterus, and she becomes the adoptive parent. We also have foster care adoption. This is a type of adoption in which a child in a foster care unit whose biological parents' rights have been terminated by court. It means that maybe the biological parents were incapable of managing their child. Maybe they abused that child, and it becomes a subject of litigation. And the court rules that they can no longer, have custody of that child. So the child will be transferred to a foster care center, and from there, a prospective adoptive parent will follow the legal processes to adopt that child. That is called foster care adoption. And then adult adoption, that is the type of adoption involving an adult. An adult is defined as somebody in some countries 18 years and above. In some other countries, it is 18 years and above. When you adopt such a person, it's called adoption. Now we also have domestic infant adoption. This is a situation whereby the mother voluntarily looks for, that is the birth mother, voluntarily looks for a prospective adoptive parent. And she selects the adoptive family by herself. Government is not involved in that selection. So that is domestic infant adoption. And then we also have the international adoption. It is also called inter-country adoption. It's a situation whereby a child is adopted from another country. And closely related to that is the transracial adoption. Simply, it is an adoption that in which a child of a different race is adopted. And we have single person adoption, a situation whereby an unmarried person adopts a child. I've talked about same-sex couple adoption before, common among homosexuals. Then we have relative adoption. This type of adoption is widely practiced in Nigeria and in most African societies. The situation whereby the extended family adopts another member of that family. It's a situation whereby an adoptive parent adopts a child that shares the same faith with that parent. You will agree with me that Islam favors that type of adoption. Now, let us now come to the Islamic adoption. What is involved in Islamic adoption? Now there are two perspectives. In his opening remarks, the National Dawah Officer of NASA said that adoption has become partial issues we are battling with. Because even among Muslims, there are two perspectives of adoption. The first perspective says that okay, are you able to hear me now?
Yes, sir. Can you?
Okay, there was an interruption. I don't know at what point the network was disconnected. Anyway, I was talking about the two perspectives of adoption in Islam. And the group of scholars adoption is prohibited in Islam, justify their position with the Quran and the Sunnah. They cite the Quran and the Sunnah as their basis. For instance, the submission of Allah in Quran chapter 33, verses 4 to 5 is one of the Quranic injunctions cited as basis for the expression of Allah, which says, that Allah has not regarded your adopted children as your real children. And again, Allah says in the following verse, in the law, that you should call them by the names of their fathers. That is truthful before Allah. This position submits that adoption is not truthful. When you say you have adopted somebody, especially the full type of adoption, the full type of adoption, that it's prohibited in Islam. And there are various ahadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that also prohibits adoption. For instance, the Prophet said that man da'a ila ghayri abihi wa huwa ya'lam annahu ghayra abihi falijannatu alayhi haramun. He who firstly attributes his fatherhood to anyone besides his real father, knowing that he is not his father, will be forbidden to enter Al-Jannah. So, on the basis of Quranic injunction and the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, those scholars say that adoption is prohibited. Now, the second group of scholars contend that adoption is halal, and they use the same injunction cited by those who contend that adoption is prohibited as their basis. They say that those injunctions in the Jahiliyyah period are aspects such as naming the adopted child after the adopted parent. The Quran prohibits that. The Quran didn't prohibit adoption 100%. But it says, if you have adopted, you cannot change the name of that child. You cannot replace the surname of that child with your own name. Secondly, what is also prohibited in the Jahiliyyah type of adoption is granting the adopted child the right to inherit the adopted parent. That is also prohibited. So, if you remove these two, what remains is the humanitarianism that is associated with adoption. What remains is the care that comes with adoption. What remains is the emotional support that comes with adoption. What remains is giving that child the opportunity to function within the family system, to function within a home. What remains is systematic and effective nurturing of that child. So, on the basis of these, those scholars say adoption is halal. Another basis for submitting that adoption is halal is that in several verses of the Quran, Allah enjoins us to take good care of orphans and vulnerable children. Allah says, for instance, that you refuse to honor the orphans. In one of the short surahs, Allah says, have you not seen the one who belies the day of recompense? It's the one that drives away the orphan, doesn't want to see them. And in another instance, Allah says, وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. There are several injunctions of the Quran which support taking care of the orphans. And you also find similar injunctions in the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In one tradition, the Prophet said that he and the one who takes care of the orphan will be like this in Al-Jannah, that they will be together in Al-Jannah. And that home where an orphan is taken care of is a blessed home. So, if adoption is something that is permitted in Islam, permitted with conditionalities, what is the procedure for adopting a child in Islam? Scholars have used the concept of kafala to legitimize the issue of adoption, to legitimize the issue of adoption. And in some cases, the term kafala is used. Kafala means guardianship or sponsorship. The term has been accepted by the United Nations in some of their pronouncements. The term kafala is used, even though they are yet to fully implement the terms that is attached to kafala. Now, for somebody to adopt in Islam, what is the procedure? The first is that that person has a good intention. The intention is crucial. That intention must be pure. It must be an intention that is motivated by the decision to obey Allah, an intention that is motivated by the need to help another human being. That should be the intention. Even though it may also help you to solve your own problems in the process, but the intention is that once you have the capacity to adopt, to help another person, to sponsor another person, to serve as guidance to another person, you can make the intention, hoping that Allah will help you to implement that decision. The second leg of the procedure has to do with effective preparation. You must be sure that you are well prepared to take up that responsibility. Otherwise, that adopted child will be moving or may be moving from frying pan to fire. You want to help that child, you want to subject the child to a mystery. So you make sure you perfect your arrangement to ensure that you have the facilities to be able to take care of that child. Those facilities must not be material alone. There are spiritual facilities like that to ensure that your consciousness of God is strong enough so that by the time you adopt that child, you do not now abuse the child. You do not do things that are detrimental to the interest of that child. The third is that you must be ready to preserve the lineage of that child. Islam does not believe in tampering with somebody's lineage. Blood relationship is very, very crucial, and it has several implications. For instance, it has implications for inheritance. When you adopt a child and you now according all the rights the birth child will have, it has implications for inheritance. So you can go for either simple or partial adoption. You cannot go for full adoption. It has to be simple or partial. Simple or partial adoption means that the biological parents of that child must be involved in the process. And having adopted that child, they will also still be involved in taking care of the child. They must have access to that child, and then they should be allowed to contribute their own quota towards the development of the child. We have to retain the surname of that child. That is another way of preserving the adoptee's lineage. Ensure that you preserve the you retain the name of the adopted child. I've talked about access to biological parents and relatives of that child. The fourth measure or the fourth part of that process is that when you finally bring in that child to your home, you must treat that child equally with your biological children. There must not be any discrimination between the adopted child and the biological child. Number 5 is that you can also adopt a child in Islam through fosterage. Fosterage adoption means that the mother, the adoptive mother, will breastfeed the baby. By breastfeeding the baby, that baby becomes your foster child, with the condition that that child is under 2 years old as at the time you breastfeed the baby, and that the adoptive mother there must be evidence that the adoptive mother has actually breastfed the adoptee. Thirdly, under foster adoption, nikah is forbidden with the foster siblings of that adopted child. The adopted child cannot marry any of your birth children. Now, part of the regulations governing foster adoption is that foster child has now become a mahram. If she's a female, it's unnecessary for her to use hijab in the presence of the husband and other male members of that family. And lastly, that foster child is not entitled to inheritance. You can take care of that foster child through wasiya, through the will that you make, but he is not a legal or fundamental here when it comes to inheritance matters. Now, if the child being adopted is an orphan, and that child has some property, you must, it is your responsibility to ensure that the property of that child is secured. But a part of it can be used for the upkeep of that orphan. If, for instance, we are not in position along the line to fund the maintenance of that child, and that child has property in possession. In the interest of that child, we can use part of the property of the orphan to sponsor him. Now, one important aspect of Islamic adoption is that adopted children cannot inherit. I've mentioned this earlier, but they can benefit from your will. Now, these are the procedures, and in spite of these procedures, you discover that there are challenges here and there regarding Islamic adoption. What are those challenges, and how do we ensure that those challenges are removed? How do we ensure that we overcome those challenges? I will mention about 4 or more of those challenges. The first is the formalization of kafala. The formalization of kafala is still a dream. Islamic adoption is yet to be taken care of in the legislations that we have today. In those legislations, so many things are taken care of, but the Islamic type of adoption through kafala is yet to be taken care of. And what can we do about it? We need to make noise about it. We need advocacy programs so that the provision for kafala can be incorporated into our laws, into the child's laws that we have today. Related to that is the fact that the popular Hague Adoption Convention, which recognizes alternative adoption, is yet also to recognize kafala fully. It recognizes it informally, so it has to be formally recognized, so that kafala can be legally implemented. Kafala will cease to be an informal arrangement among Muslims, so that Muslim children can benefit legally from adoption. Now, number 3, the third challenge has deals or relates to the legal processes that one has to pass through before adoption can be accepted as being legally binding on the stakeholders involved. So, because of legal processes involved, and because of the un-Islamic aspects of those legal processes, Muslim children are unable to benefit from the resources of adoption. What can we do about it? Muslims should, in the meantime, take this as their responsibility to protect vulnerable persons. There are millions of those vulnerable persons all over the world. So we just have to continue to do what we can to ensure that we take care of those children. If non-Muslims are not taking care of them, they are not taking care of them, Muslims should be in position to take good care of those children. The fourth challenge has to do with the abuse of kafala itself. The kafala system is being abused in some parts of the Muslim world, especially in the Gulf states, where employers of labor make their employees to sign a kafala contract, and the implication is that anything relevant to those employees, we have to be referred to their guardian, the kafir. So if the guardian, whatever the guardian says, the government believes, even if that guardian is oppressive, he has the sole power or authority to do and undo. This is an abuse of the kafala system. The passport is with the employer, and if the employer recommends that visa should not be issued, for instance, to the employee, it will not be issued. So there is need to ensure that the kafala system, as is practiced in the Muslim world, is revisited so that the interests of employees will be protected adequately under the kafala system. Another challenge is the issue of cross-religious adoption of fosterage. This is a situation whereby a Muslim, for instance, is adopted by a non-Muslim. When this happens, we know that the faith of that Muslims may not be protected. And what can we do to overcome that challenge? We should encourage Muslims not to succumb, no matter the level of your frustration or challenge. And we should ensure that we create awareness about this type of adoption. Another abuse of kafala is trafficking in children and the commercialization of the adoption process. We know trafficking is in children is illegal, is wicked. It's like modern slavery, and some people hide under kafala to traffic children. What can we do about it? We can create awareness. We can make use of certain precautionary measures. We can monitor what to adopted children that we know here and there. So on this note, I will move on to a few recommendations that should assist us to ensure that Islamic adoption is well entrenched in our life, in our society, in Nigeria and elsewhere. First, there is need to recognize the wide and expanding roles of the mosque to include various humanitarian programs. This is an important form of dawah. Dawah is not only by inviting people through preaching and so on. Dawah is also by the kind of gesture we extend to people. And Muslim mosques and Muslim organizations should ensure that they not only engage in verbal, but they also engage in humanitarian dawah. And one humanitarian dawah that we can utilize is through adoption. Number two, mosques should evolve sustainable programs for vulnerable children, which should include scholarship, sponsorship, and guardianship schemes. I'm aware that some mosques and some Muslim organizations are already doing this, but what is being done is a far cry compared to the magnitude of the problem that we have before us. Number three, Muslims should be at the forefront in the campaign against wars. We know that conflicts and wars are major contributors to the problem of vulnerable children. So we should ensure that we reduce the population of children waiting for adoption. How do we do that? Muslims should play more roles in conflicts. We have not been visible in terms of mediation in international conflicts. We should be more visible. We should engage those who are in even wars within the Ummah, wars in Muslim countries. What are we doing to ensure that we stop those wars and we prevent them from occurring? Because those wars produce distressed children. Children are victims of those wars. Number four, we can halt the proliferation of homeless children through family education. Islam cherishes and encourages the family. FOMAN and other Muslim women groups should evolve strategies for championing and funding children welfare programs. I want to advocate the establishment of Islamic Waqf, specifically focused on the vulnerable children. And lastly, relative adoption, which we are used to, should be promoted in Nigeria to address the Al-Majri issue. The Al-Majri issue is embarrassing, and relative adoption is well practiced in our country, in our society, but we have not been maximizing its benefits. And I'm recommending that since relative adoption preserve the rights and best interests of the child, we should embrace it more in Nigeria. In conclusion, virtually all problems, crises, and upheavals are linked directly or indirectly to the crisis within the family. Children are available for adoption largely as a result of the disregard for family values taught within the Islamic framework. Every human being is God's representative or Khalifa on earth, and that is conducive for discharging our responsibilities as Khalifa of Allah is imperative. A society where people feel alienated, neglected, and frustrated will not produce the right atmosphere for peace. In the social system of Islam, one person or even a group of people is responsible for the upkeep and care of other members. For this reason, adoption is not a norm, but an intervention to an emergency situation. The norm is to plan for the size of a family that parents can competently cater for. Child that is not catered for will grow to become a criminal, a bandit, a kidnapper, or a thought tomorrow. We can't, by embracing the way it has been presented to us in the Quran, in the Sunnah, and in the Sharia. Thank you very much. Jazakumullah khairan for this opportunity. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. Is anybody there? They are all muted.
Assalamu alaikum. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillah. 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 Rabbil Alameen. We thank our lecturer, Professor Ismail Musa from the Faculty of Education for the University of Lagos. We appreciate you for that wonderful presentation. We ask Almighty Allah to continue to enrich you in knowledge. We ask Him to continue to strengthen you. We ask Almighty Allah to spare your life for us, to give you longevity of life in order to continue to propagate Islam. Let's recite Surah to Quraysh for our erudite scholar. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف فليعبدوا رب هذا البيت الذي أطعمهم من جوع وآمنه من خوف. ولا حول ولا قوة. It's now the time for question and answer from the Q&A box. We have a question for our lecturer. Prof, sir.
Yes, I'm listening.
Okay, sorry, sir. It's for the organizer. So we shall appreciate recorded version. So inshallah, you have that, inshallah. And as far, you can even check our YouTube channel, NASFAT TV. You get the recorded versions on the YouTube, inshallah, the Kudratillah. Now, any question? Princess MKO, I can see your hands up. Do you have anything to say? Princess, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you so much. Alhamdulillah, 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 Rabbi Alameen. First of all, I want to thank the Mission Board, starting from our charismatic CM. Thank you so much for this. Then secondly, oh my God, mashallah. Prof, that was a fantastic presentation. I love your PowerPoint, the simplicity of the PowerPoint. Thank you so much. I've been in America for almost 40 years. This is the first time I'm finding out that Bill Clinton, was adopted. So I never knew that. And Nancy Reagan as well. I know about Malcolm X because I read about his biography. So I know about him, but those two, I never knew that they were adopted. Thank you so much for that information that you gave. And then also, I have a question. The Japanese culture, you said the father-in-law can adopt the son-in-law. So that means that son-in-law, we have two fathers now, his father and his father-in-law. So is that the way it is? So it claims two fathers in that country. Then also the foster care system in America, some people make it a business. And by doing this, because the government actually train them and pays them, for the foster care system. But the unfortunate part of that is most of these children in the foster care, they're not taken care of very well. So they find them moving them from one foster care system to another. So, and it's not very good for those children. So that is in America. I don't know about other places, Then also, you also mentioned about the inheritance, that an adopted child cannot inherit, but he also said about will, and that's what I don't understand, that in the will, are they going to be part of the will, but they cannot inherit? That's what I don't understand. So, Prof, if you can explain that, please. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for this. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Do you have any other question or comments? Okay.
No, that's it. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Do you want me to respond to that now, or?
Yes, you can respond, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to thank the questioner for the compliments. Jazakumullah khairan. Let me begin with the last question. How the adopted child can be taken care of in terms of inheritance. The basic rule is that adopted child cannot inherit. But if the adoptive parent is interested in giving anything to that adopted child, the adoptive parent can accommodate the adopted child within 1/3, which his will can cover under Islamic law.
Okay.
You can give whatever you intend to give to your adopted children within that 1/3. And it is not only for the adopted child. Anybody who is not entitled to inherit you under the Sharia can be taken care of within the limits of that 1/3. So, Islamic law is balanced. Nobody is left unattended to. The interests of various peoples are covered. That is part of the beauty of Islam. So that child cannot inherit by virtue of being a foster child or an adoptive child, but can benefit from the will, which is deducted before the actual sharing takes place. Now, I don't have much information about that Japanese practice, but in most cases, when somebody has adopted, that person becomes the legally recognized parent. It is only in Islamic law that the biological parent still has a role to play in the affairs of that child. In most cases, especially in the case of full adoption, the adoptive parent is fully in charge. And even in the case of partial adoption, the biological parent is only given some restricted access. There can be some kind of understanding between the adoptive parents and the biological parents as to when and how the biological parent